Hi everyone. Glad that we gathered together after a couple of months in this new normal events. So we are used with physical interaction on this kind of events, and it's quite nice to meet each other. So unfortunately, now we can meet virtually, only virtually, but yep, still good. I can see that there are a couple of people that already joined, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, maybe we'll be more in the next couple of minutes. So there was a big challenge today to organize this online event. Finally, we will have it. It was planned in physically in April, and yeah, unfortunately, it didn't occur at that moment. But we'll have it today. So yay! So the agenda for today, basically, it's to find a couple of nice things about how it's to work with hackers, because we live in the hacker community and we live in a world where the word hacker, it's in the mainstream news, in the constant attention of the news. So we'll find a couple of tips and tricks and how the bug bounty and responsible disclosure program can and will help you with securing your products better, and more like the piece of the cake, the top of the cake, where you can protect the applications. So we'll have this nice talk from Ioana Piroska and Daniel Ilies from Visma. And Ioana and Daniel are also board members of OWASP Timisoara chapter. So really looking forward to see what tips and tricks and what the life of working with hackers looks like. And we'll also have a really nice talk from Julius from Recovery Future. And if you're passionate about automation, if you're passionate about really deep and underground economy, definitely Julius will let you know about all of this. So really looking forward to see how there could be an automation of this economy. So looking forward, and yeah, I'll give the word to Ioana, and I'll stop the share. And Ioana, please.
Yes, hello everyone. Okay, so I guess now you can see my screen.
Yep, it's perfect.
Okay, so I'm very glad to be speaking for the first time for the OWASP local chapter in Timisoara. Today's presentation, as Cătălin said, will be about working with hackers, and I will mainly talk together with my colleague about bug bounty and responsible disclosure program that we have in Visma for some time already. My job is security analyst since 2018, working mainly with the bug bounty program, but also doing some other things in the Visma application security team. We are having inside Visma a security program quite complex called Visma Application Security Program. And the two programs that I will talk about today are part of this one. And we have chosen to speak about these two programs because we consider them successful. They are very interesting, and I would say that there are not very many companies that have the possibility to run them inside their security programs. You will have the chance to get answers to your questions related to what we will present at the end of the presentation, but feel free to post the questions in the chat during the presentation. So I was thinking to start with some explanations about what hacking is and the categories of hackers that currently exist. Maybe the ones that are part of the security field are aware and know these things, but I was thinking that for the ones that are at the beginning in security or that are interested about these subjects and not being part of this domain, it will be interesting to find out. So what means hacking? Hacking in general means to exploit the system vulnerabilities and to compromise the security controls in order to gain unauthorized access to the system resources. This is a broad definition of the term hacking. The motive behind hacking can be to steal business critical information for money, for intellectual challenge, curiosity. Some want to experiment new things and to learn new things. Some are doing it for power, and I would say that all the hackers do this for money, in one word. Despite the popular belief, not all the hackers are bad guys, and we have experienced working with the ethical hackers for already 2 years in our bug bounty program and some more years through the responsible disclosure program. In general, they are individuals that have excellent computer skills, and they are often specialized in certain types of vulnerabilities and also different programming languages. For some, hacking is a hobby, but some others, it's true, do this with, and unfortunately they do this with malicious intent, because they want to steal the business data, credit card information, passwords, and so on. They are so-called black hats. Ethical hackers are in fact the security researchers that have a genuine desire of improving the information security. They want to learn always to learn something new, but they also gain money doing this in an ethical way. These are so-called the white hats. In between, we have the gray hats. These guys may violate the ethical standards or principles, but they do not have malicious intent. Some other categories are the suicide hackers, which are willing to perform an attack for a cause, and they don't care if they will be prosecuted for this. The cyber terrorists are the ones who are influenced by certain religious or political beliefs, and usually they work to cause fear and disruptions of the systems and networks. Script kiddies are the unexperienced guys, I would say, or the young ones, or the ones that are at the beginning with hacking, and they use different tools which are built by other hackers in order to perform their hacking. And state-sponsored hackers usually are recruited by the government to gain access to secret information of other governments. Then we have, last but not least, the hacktivists, which is a category that break into government or corporate systems out of protest. They usually use their skills to promote a political or a social agenda. And as I said, the motive behind all of them are the money. And we like to stay, or we like to believe that we work with ethical hackers, and it proved to be like this, because in our journey with the responsible disclosure program and the bug bounty program, really we didn't have any kind of unethical or malicious intentions with these guys. Starting with the responsible disclosure program, it means that we encourage the security researchers to test our products for vulnerabilities and send us the reports via the responsible disclosure email address. Important to mention is that all the Visma assets are in scope for responsible disclosure program. That means everything that is developed or owned by Visma, any domain, IP or web application is part of the scope for the responsible disclosure program. We have a policy, which of course they have to respect. It is published on our trust center. And for example, there in the policy, there are some things which are mentioned, and one of them would be that they have to respect the ground rules. One of them would be that they are not they are not allowed to publicly disclose the vulnerabilities until they are fixed and until they have explicit permission from Visma to do so. There are some vulnerabilities that we are not interested in getting reports for. These vulnerabilities are in general low-level severity vulnerabilities. Usually the theoretical ones that cannot be exploited in a practical way, and some examples would be missing HTTP headers or clickjacking on pages with no sensitive actions and so on. We mentioned all these things in our policy page because we want them to be aware that their reports will not be accepted in case they submit things that are out of scope. Inside the security team, we aim to triage all the reports within 12 business hours and to address all accepted issues in 30 days. What means to address them? It means that we aim to contact and to find the contacts inside our service delivery teams in 30 days and address them, the issues, so that they can fix them. Some achievements we got until today, around about 240 valid vulnerabilities reported. In the case of the responsible disclosure program, very important to mention would be that we do not offer money. There were in the past the case that we gave them SWOCs for the valid reports, but right now what we can offer is a place to our Hall of Fame. Actually, is a page published in under security and privacy in our trust center where their names is listed. So for each year we have the names of all the researchers that send to us valid reports. It doesn't matter how severe they are, so we do not take this into consideration. For all the valid reports, we offer them a place in our Hall of Fame. Of course, we made also some exceptions because in the past we got two really critical reports, two RCEs which were submitted, and that time we decided to award the researchers because they were really valuable reports. But in general, we do not offer money. We do not offer money because we also have another program where the researchers have the possibility to send us vulnerabilities and to get rewards for. Bug bounty, in fact, is a more restricted part of the responsible disclosure program, where we have only some of our services in scope. These are following a very clear onboarding process, and after we consider that they are enough mature to be able to join the bug bounty program, then we start the onboarding process. Actually, the bug bounty program is a partnership with the HackerOne platform, which is one of the biggest platforms for such programs. And we have currently two programs, a private one and a public one. And I think in the next slide, you will see also which are the main differences between the two programs. The hackers which are part of our bug bounty programs, of course, have to respect our own defined policy and also the HackerOne general policy. So we invited some hackers from all over the world. We tried to include in the private program the best ones, looking for specialized skills, to have different programming languages covered, and also the ones that are specialized for different types of vulnerabilities. And they are testing the security of our applications for big amounts of money. There are differences when we speak about the awards, not so big differences, but for example, in the private program, we pay between $100 and $3,000 depending on the criticality, while in the public program, we pay between $100 and $2,500 per bug. The main difference, I would say, that in the private program, we are the ones who invite the hackers. So it's an invite-only program. That allows us to have a very good quality of the reports because we take care which are the hackers who are part of the program, and of course, less noise. Right now, we have more than 150 hackers invited. While in the public program, anybody that has a HackerOne account can join. So we are speaking here about hundreds of thousands of hackers who can hack our applications. We take care to onboard the most mature services in the public program, of course, because in the public program, once a vulnerability or a report is disclosed, it will be publicly available. So our approach is to first have the teams part of the private program, and if they fulfill certain requirements, then they can be moved into the public program. And one of the requirements would be the self-sign-in. And that means that we want to have in the public programs the teams that have the possibility to give instructions to the hackers to create the accounts, the login accounts. And this is because we cannot distribute so many accounts. Speaking about the public program, there is no automation in place yet. We have this as a future plan, but for the moment, this is one of the requirements. And of course, the most important, I would say that they really have to do a good job in the private program. That means to validate and fix the bugs pretty fast, so that we are sure that they will do a good job in public also. So this is basically our approach in regards of the two programs. We are crazy, yes, in a way. You can say it like this, because we invite the hackers to hack our applications, but no, this has been proven as one of the best ways to secure the company's assets, and all the big corporations are doing it for some years already. In this way, we considered that we will improve our security in a fast and controlled way. We are on the internet, all of us, so we are getting hacked anyway. And then why don't we pay someone to find the vulnerabilities for us and improve fast our security? Most likely paying a pen test company to do this for us would have likely cost us much more. So we decided to go like this with the vulnerability disclosure programs. It has been proven to be a great way of improving the security for the companies. And I would say that the strength lies in the number of files of expertise, because more researchers means more findings and a better security. Another important thing that I would add is that comparing to the internal tests that are usually performed by the companies, being part of a bug bounty program will assure that you will be tested continuously. For example, in our security program, we have the manual application vulnerability assessment, which in fact it's a pen testing done by our colleagues, our team of pen testers, but this can be done only once a year for each team, while being part of the bug bounty program means that you will be tested continuously by the hackers. And I will now jump to our journey, how it all started. Back in October 2016, we started with some enterprise teams in a private program together with HackerOne. There were 4 teams and 4 assets which were added in scope, and the program was available only for Finland assets. And this was started due to our enthusiastic colleague that had the initiative to start a bug bounty program. His name is Joachim Toren. We have seen the value of this program because they got varied reports starting in the very first hours and weeks after onboarding the assets in scope. So it proved to be a real success. That's why we decided that we want the story to go on. And luckily, in January 2019, we got the approval to start the corporate bug bounty. That means that all our products may be a candidate at some point for joining the bug bounty program. We continued this approach with a private program at the beginning, and in the first week we invited about 10 hackers, tried to search for the ones that are very good. And we had one team, one product team, and 3 assets that were in scope. All of those assets were were owned by that product team. And in the first 2 weeks, we already got 7 reports. So we decided to, of course, onboard more and more teams. And we established a process for the internal teams which are prepared to join. So one of the requirements is that they have all the internal security tests up to date. And after performing all the security tests, they have to fix everything that was found. That means that when they will start the bug bounty program, they have to have 0 known vulnerabilities. Also, something that they have to assume before joining is that they will validate the bugs in 2 business days. That means verifying what has been sent by the hackers and giving us their word that the report is valid and they will fix it. After that, we immediately pay the hackers, and this is the reason why we require 2 business days for validation, because we want to act fast and we want to pay them immediately after we validate the bugs so that we can keep their interest. They have 90 days for fixing the bugs, except of the critical ones, which have 5 business days to be fixed. Also, they have to prepare the accounts and the environment which will be tested. Most of the teams prefer to go live with the staging environment. I think 99 of the teams decided to go live with the staging environment because they and us consider this more safe to use the staging. An approach that we are having since we started is to be transparent with our internal teams and transparent with the hackers. So if we speak about the internal teams, we decided that we will have a Jira project which will be synchronized in real time. The HackerOne reports will be synchronized in real time with the Jira cases opened in the bug bounty project, and this allowed the developers to see each bug, and when they saw the reports, they could learn from it. One of the product owners said to us that he was able to see a certain bug on a product and he's thinking that they have the same in the team, so he checked it in order to solve it. Transparent with the hackers means that we want to disclose almost all the vulnerabilities, most of them in private and also in the public program. And the reason behind this is that we want to give them ideas to test the same type of vulnerabilities also for the other assets that are in scope or for the new ones that will be added in the future. And of course, the security team has its own responsibilities. And here I would mention that we are responsible from the program for the overall program management, for the initial assessment and validation of the findings. So we are in the SOC team, the first line that takes the report and validates it. And only in case it's valid, it's sent to the security team, which will give the final word. If it's a real bug, maybe it's something by design, or maybe they don't want to fix it from different reasons. So we pay the hackers only after we have the word from the responsible team. So we communicate with the asset owner, but we communicate also with the hackers through the HackerOne platform. And another thing that we take care of is to pay the bounties for the hackers. We consider that that is something that the teams shouldn't care about. And since the budget is on our side in the security team, we pay the bounties for them. So what happened during this period of time? We added, of course, more and more hackers in the private program, getting to a number of 150 hackers right now, and plan to increase it. Of course, the number of reports started to go up as well. And we try to give the hacker support via different social media channels like Twitter and Slack. And this resulted in a very good dialogue with the hackers. In the first screenshot, you can see a feedback from one of our hackers in the private program that he submitted 2 vulnerabilities in the same report. So even if it was one report, we paid twice because we considered that this is how it's fair. And he was very happy about this. The same guy told us later that he was trying to get back to hack some old assets, and he got discouraged because there is absolutely nothing to be found. So that is very nice to find out from them. In the second screenshot, you see another happy hacker that likes our program. And here it was the case that he was very happy because we explained what happened with his report. So I would say that a very good communication with the hacker, always explaining the decision. For example, why a report was rejected or why it was closed as informating, and giving them the possibility to self-close the reports when it's the case. This results in a very good engagement on their side. And it seems that they really like our bug bounty programs. In January 2020, so at the beginning of this year, we decided that it's time to start also a public bug bounty. What we did is that we defined a new policy and a new bounty table, because since a public program is available for everybody, there had to be done some slightly modifications on the policy and on the bounty table, and decided for a process to start with for our product teams. And the main things that we ask from the service delivery teams is that they will prove they are enough mature in the private program, fixing and validating the bugs fast, and the possibility for self sign-in, so that it's easy that we manage the credentials. The onboarding was done, of course, gradually. Right now we have 5 product teams in the public program and 23 teams in the private one. So in total, a number of 28 products and more assets that are in scope. This approach of moving from private to public, it's really effective, I would say. So currently, 480 valid reports in the private program, and we paid more than 180K bounties in private, and in the public program 100 valid reports and 18K bounties. There are big difference, you would say, but this is normal. Once, because in the private program, we have more teams, much more teams than in the public one. And because it's older, almost it's 1 year difference since we started between private and public. And I would mention here also that the quality of the reports from the private program is better, and this is due to the fact that the hackers are chosen, the ones that we invite. In total, we paid 200K in this period of time. Lots of money, you would say. And you can have a look here on the bounty table for each program. As I explained, there are some difference, but not so big differences in the amount of money that we pay for each report. In regards of bounty amount and weaknesses, here you can see how much we paid for each type of vulnerability. What you can see here is that comparing the private program with the public one, we paid less. This is because of the number of teams and due to the fact that the awards are smaller in public compared to private. In regards of vulnerabilities that we got, there are some of them which appear in the OWASP top 10, but we are happy to say that we didn't get any SQL injection so far. So mostly we have seen that they like the IDORs and in general access control issues, and then we have XSS on the second place in the private program. If you compare the two screenshots, you can see that some of the vulnerabilities which you can find in the private program repeat in public. But for example, the IDOR, which was on the first place in the private program, in the public program, it's on the 5th place. The same with cross-site scripting. It's down in the table. And that means that we can see the value of having both of them in place. And I chosen to show you the submissions, how they look like in the private program, because it's more relevant to see them in private. As you can see, the curve is pretty flat until Q2 2020. And what happened then is that we onboarded one of our biggest team and an important one that has, it's called InSchool. It has very many endpoints that were tested by the hackers. And of course, we got many reports for them. But even if we paid a big amount of money for this team, they are now more confident in their security posture because they have been really tested well, and most of the bugs that they got back then are right now solved. In the other screenshot, you can see that 60%, almost 60% of the reports are valid from the submissions that we get. That is in the private program, but I can say that this number is actually higher because here it's not taken into considerations the one that are duplicates, and those are valid reports also. So I would mention that 70–80% of the reports that we get in private are valid. Another interesting thing that we discovered is that the average of valid reports per service, it's very similar in private and in public. And again, having both of them is valuable, I would say. Some metrics and costs, the overall metrics for the private program. Here, what we are proud about is that the average bounty time is 2 days, and also the average triage time is 2 business days. This is according to our policy. So because we aim to triage or to validate all the bugs in 2 business days, and as you can see, this has been fulfilled. And the bounty time, that means the time from the moment we triage a report until we pay. It's also 2 business days, and also it's according to our policy. Also the resolution time, this is the merit of our product security teams. Even if they have 90 days, the average resolution time is 1 month. And all these response times put us in a very good position on HackerOne, and we can certainly say that our programs are attractive to the hackers. So I hope I didn't got you bored with these numbers and statistics, because right now I will give the word to Dani to show you some cool stuff that we got on our programs.
Yeah, sure. Let me just sharing my screen. Okay. I hope you can see it now and also hear me.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hello, I'm Daniel. I'm a security analyst at Visma. I'm colleague with Ioana. This is actually my second talk on OWASP, but it's the first virtual one. So, as today we'll talk about bug bounty. It's good to know that I'm also one of the guys that are triaging the bug bounty reports from our bug bounty programs. And yeah, I'm glad to be here with you today and share some cool bugs. And I chose few examples from bugs that I received on our bug bounty program. First of them will be a server-side request forgery via HTML injection. Server-side request forgery, it's a vulnerability that, if exploited, it allows the attacker to abuse the functionality on a server to read or update the internal resources. For example, you can access some restricted information or data in the application itself or on the backend system that the application can communicate with. The second one, because this is a combine, the HTML injection, it's a type of injection that allows users to inject arbitrary HTML code into a web page. And let's see, this is the report we actually received on our bug bounty program. The report, as you can see, is very simple, that describe the issue and also have some instructions that help us replicate it. This is like in the template, the steps to reproduce, because it's easier for us to see what the hacker, let's say, did there, or the researcher, what he did there, and it's easier for us to replicate. What we can see here, it's actually a crafted URL because it's actually containing 2 URLs. First one is a valid one that generates a PDF in an application, and the second one, it's the Azure metadata interface that it returns the secret access key. The Azure metadata is accessible via this non-routable IP address, so cannot be accessed from external. But because of the HTML injection, what the researcher did is to, in this crafted URL, is to add the URL of the metadata. Okay, and because of this, it was possible to make the request to be initiated from the internal resources. So what was the response is something like this, containing the secret access key. We, of course, triaged the report as a critical severity and rewarded the researcher. Next one, example number 2, it's XSS or cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting is a variant of injection used for web application attacks. To better understand, you can imagine that the web application is being used to send malicious code to a user. In this type of attack, the target is always the user, not the server or the application. The attack can be used to steal cookies and logging in as another user then, or even manipulate the UI. And this is the report, again, very simple and easy to replicate. Just navigate to a certain URL where you will have an input field. You just have to paste the payload from the researcher in that input field and the XSS will trigger. And here, like maybe let's say like an advice, if you are about to create or submit bug bounty reports, always try to extend the impact at maximum. For example, this one is not a good example. If you only show that you are able to trigger a pop-up that says XSS, so okay, it's not looks like being a big deal, but for sure, once this is possible, you can do more. For example, you can try to get the cookies and show that you can use them, and this will definitely extend the impact of your report really a lot. So even the bounty will be much bigger. The third example that I've chosen is the remote code execution. All of us heard about RCE and probably doesn't need much explanation, but it basically means that someone can exploit a vulnerability to run arbitrary code on a target machine. A success exploit ends by hijacking the computer, gain full access to it, and after that you can use it, I don't know, to steal data, carry out DDoS attacks, destroy files or the infrastructure, and even engage in illegal activities and so on. Here is the report. Basically, there is some vulnerabilities in this version of Telerik software, and there was also a tool available on GitHub that helps you to exploit this vulnerability. With the help of the tool, the researcher exploited this vulnerability and basically able to upload a web shell in the application folder. Then with the help of the web shell, he was able to run commands, and pretty simple that was. We triaged the report again as critical severity and paid the researcher accordingly. Next, I think, yeah, last example from my cool bug report. It's HTTP request smuggling. This is a bit more complicated. It's a technique for interfering with the way a website processes the HTTP requests that are received from the user. A success exploitation of this more likely have critical consequences, like gaining unauthorized access to sensitive data. Normally, how it is working is that the front server forwards HTTP request to a backend server, but for efficiency and performance reasons, multiple requests are sent via same network connection, one after another, right? So front end and back end systems must agree about the boundaries between requests. This is critical. They have to agree, and they can do that in two ways, even considering the content length or transfer encoding headers, one of these headers. So here the issue appears when two peers must agree on something. Yeah, you always have big chances to have issues. So the attack involves actually how the attack can be launched by placing both content length and transfer encoding header in the same header in the same HTTP request, and manipulating this in a way that front-end and back-end services process the request differently. Here we have a few HTTP request smuggling vulnerabilities. There are three well-known times: CLTE, TECL, and TETE. Of course, there is also CLCL, but this is why I mentioned the three most well-known of them. The name is relevant. For example, the first one, CLTE, that is the one we have it below in the example, means that the front end is using the CL, the content length. Oops, sorry. Yeah, the front end is using content length, and the back end is using transfer encoding. So here is the issue. This is the report. This is actually, we have disclosed it. It's really a long report. We cannot share it entirely here. Also, I think two hackers collaborate to having this, because initially they thought it's only DOS, but yeah, finally it was HTTP request smuggling, and they were able to get requests from other users. Yeah, this is actually the request. Of course, the endpoints are hidden here, and we again triaged this as a critical and paid the hacker accordingly. Now, as takeaways, yeah, life goes on. We are now more and more secure on our products, as they are tested continuously by hackers with reputation. We are also more confident in our security posture. Developers get into the hacker's mind. They are definitely think differently when we talk about security. All new features are secure by design, which should be normal everywhere, in every company, for every product, as later on might be difficult or might be too late to have a patch for a security bug. Security is now a corporate level priority. We can see this as the future plans are to move our responsible disclosure to HackerOne, start an internal bug bounty program. Here we'll see how we will do it. The award will be different. Onboard 2 services every month. This is a big goal that we want to achieve. And private will continue to move teams from private program to public one. And yeah, this was the cool bugs part.
Yeah,
now
thank you.
I will leave the word to Katalin.
Thank you very much, Ioana and Daniel. There was a really nice inputs. There are 2 questions, really brief questions. How bug bounty and responsible disclosure affected the general situation, but especially in terms of product development, how this affected? It's a question for both of you.
Can you repeat, please, Katalin? I was somehow, I don't know, didn't hear, and everything was blocked.
No worries. So how bug bounty responsible disclosure affected the general situation in terms of product development?
Well, I would answer this question that I think the most important thing that we aim to achieve, or we hope that we achieved during this period of time when since we started, would be that we want to have security by design inside our product teams. So in the moment they make the design for an application, to think also about the security part of it.
Mm-hmm. And what was the biggest challenge for you as a bug bounty program owner, but also for the product development teams?
So probably the biggest challenge was to respect the policy in terms of response times, both on our side in the SOC team and also in the development team side, because there are periods when you really get very many reports, and then you have to very well coordinate in the team so that you take care that you respect those 2 business days that we aim for validation. And for the teams, for the certain teams that got very many reports, of course, it was hard to respect that resolving time that they have of 90 days. But in general, we can say that overall, we managed to achieve this.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you very much for your presentation again. And I'll give the word to Julius, which is the next speaker. So he'll enlighten us about the cyber threat intelligence part and how you can automate lots of nice cool and stuff.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Am I able to share my screen straight away?
Yep.
Yeah, looks like I can. Here we go, and present this. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Kathleen, for having me join this OWASP chapter. This is the first time I'm here. And thank you to Daniel and Ioana for the very interesting presentation that's just gone. This is also the first time I'm presenting anything like this virtually. I don't know if it's more daunting just talking to my laptop or actually doing it face to face. I assume we'll see. But yeah, I'm glad you all stayed on. It's considerably, well, it's only 4 p.m. for me here in the UK, so it's a bit of a later evening for you guys. But hopefully you'll yeah, be able to follow along as I go through this. And so as the purpose of the presentation today is to look at the automation of the underground economy. And we'll do that by looking at the typical tools and services that we are finding people selling and buying and using in attacks to sort of make it easier for less sophisticated threat actors to take part in a lot of these attacks that you as defenders or us as defenders are trying to protect against. Through this, we'll talk about quite a few tools, but predominantly we'll look at Sniffers and how they target web applications. Magecart, I'm sure you've all come across as well. And then the importance of threat intelligence. And we will do this through the following agenda. So we'll start by looking at the automation of the underground economy, kind of how that's come about in recent years. We'll then go to focus more specifically on Sniffers, and in particular developers of these Sniffers that we have seen through Recorded Future. We'll then look at Magecart as a threat actor group, a bit of background to them and some of the recent activity. And then to not just finish with doom and gloom, we'll look at how threat intelligence can actually help companies protect themselves and be more proactive in their defenses against potential attacks utilizing these tools that we're seeing on the underground economy. But a bit of background to myself, there is more to me than just being a threat intelligence consultant, but that is the purpose of today. I work for a company called Recorded Future. I don't know if many of you have heard of us. We are a security intelligence company, essentially a huge collection platform where we are scraping in over a million different resources or sources in real time and being able to contextualize this and provide our customers with automated analysis to help them make more effective decisions on in their defenses. So the picture in the middle is just Marty. He's Recorded Future's mascot. You might see him around on stickers and at events and t-shirts. So that's him there in the middle. And then, yeah, I recently passed my threat intelligence SANS exam as well. So that was a nice one to get across the board. But to start us off here with the automation of the underground economy. And the underground economy doesn't differentiate as an industry to any other type of industry that we're seeing that's not illegal or illegitimate. Automation is essential to the underground economy, just like it is for retail and warehouses and supply chains. And what this has actually come about in recent years, and it's created a type of ecosystem where that consists of different tools and resources that allow threat actors to actually operationalize and monetize their campaigns in a very different and a much easier way than they had before. So we're seeing specific threat actors who become specialists and are able to commoditize parts of the entire process of a cyber attack, going all the way, if you think about it from all the way, think about it from the cyber kill chain, the different phases along the way, from reconnaissance all the way up to actions and objectives. Different specialists are able to facilitate the transition throughout these phases in a very effective way. And so that's what we're seeing, the specialization and commoditization that's become available. And so what this has created is a supply chain of automated attacks, essentially. The skills required to conduct a successful attack are no longer really required in the same way. So you don't need to hack a company alone and conduct the entire process by yourself. What you're actually able to do now through this specialization and commoditization is go through simple steps and buy and rent the correct sources and tools along the way. So essentially, someone can buy access to a company from a vendor, either purchasing leaked credentials or digital fingerprints. After this, they can then rent what is called a checker to validate the credentials that they purchase to make sure that they actually work. Once they confirm this, they will then theoretically be able to buy a loader, which is used to deliver and obfuscate the malware and hit the target of interest. So this sort of supply chain where you no longer need to conduct the entire attack yourself, you can now actually just with a bit of extra cash and access or knowledge of how to get onto a Tor network, you can kind of simply do this yourself. And so what this unfortunately does for us, for defenders and people trying to protect against these types of attacks, is that this has significantly lowered the barrier of entry required to conduct an attack. So previously, where malware used to take months to develop, maintain, update, can now just be purchased off the shelf by anyone, again, with access to the correct forums. And so campaigns and attacks can be planned, executed a lot quicker, which leads to this onslaught of attacks that we're seeing today, with less skilled attackers being able to actually conduct very harmful attacks against companies. Moving on, and I do apologize if there's a bit of background noise here every now and then. I do live in London, so it's a bit inevitable that that will come up every now. Working from home has kind of changed the dynamics here. But I do want to focus on some of the tools and services that we're seeing that allow threat actors to automate a lot of these tasks. So I've highlighted three here, the checkers and brute forces, banking, inject, and sniffers. So inject was something that was brought up in the presentation just gone. But to begin with, checkers and brute forces, these are types of tools that are purchased once someone has already obtained credentials. And so what they can do is automate login attempts to validate or to validate credentials and conduct credential stuffing attacks, as they're known as. They differentiate slightly in the purposes of how they sort of benefit an adversary. But what they do, checkers, what they do is kind of in the name, but if you purchase a database of leaked credentials, what a checker is able to do is automatically validate which of these credentials actually work. And so just to give you a sense of the automation side of this, a checker, a well-known checker that can be purchased for $12 US can actually check 5,500 credentials in only 90 seconds. So once these huge databases can be purchased, there are billions of credentials on the dark web currently, and it's only increasing. Instead of having to manually validate each of these yourself with a small cost of $12, you're actually able to start validating these automatically, which makes it considerably easier for someone to start going through and finding the actual compromised credentials in that. And as you can see here on the picture on the right-hand side, this is the landing page of a famous underground forum. And you can see that there is both a brute forcer and a checker paid tab for anyone who wants to go in and purchase these readily available on the dark web. And so actually with the way that it works, checkers and brute forcers allow essentially with a $550 investment, it can yield you up to 20 times in profit from the validated credentials. So if you think about a particular checker that costs $100, the database with the credentials costs maybe $150, and then the proxies on top of that are an additional $250. So that amounts to around $500 US. And these, if with this investment, if you take a database like the LinkedIn 2016 leaked database, and you're able to ascertain around 1 million credentials, a credential stuffing attack through a checker normally has between a 1 to 3% success rate. So if you have a database of 1 million credentials, with 1 to 3% success rate, that will amount to around 10 to 30,000 compromised accounts, which you are then able to sell off for that 20 time profit from the initial $500 investment with tools like checkers that enable you to validate them so quickly. Unfortunately, when it comes to protecting yourself against attacks like this, the most important and most effective way of doing this, and it keeps getting reiterated, but it is password hygiene. Given that these tools allow you to use databases from one compromised website to test against other websites automatically, password hygiene and not reusing the same password and definitely not using your corporate login and emails is the best way to try to mitigate this. And I know as much as you try to emphasize that, it's often very difficult for people to listen and take notice. The next thing that I want to discuss briefly here is banking injects. So banking injects, as discussed on the previous presentations, are tools essentially for performing fraud. These injects are often used in conjunction with banking Trojans to inject malicious code into a website before a unsuspecting user is then redirected to the legit bank website. A lot of these injects are often delivered via phishing or exploit kits, and they tend to target operating systems such as Windows and Android mostly. A lot of these banking injects integrate with famous or well-known banking Trojans such as Cerberus, LokiBot, and only recently the Cerberus source code was leaked online, meaning that there is likely going to be an increase in the use of this from other sort of opportunistic adversaries who are going to utilize the Cerberus source code to perform attacks and inject themselves using this. Oftentimes, these banking injects are just sold off the shelf, but these can also be customizable, which means that in the inject themselves, the person selling it can actually make sure that it gets delivered to the website and the target that you want. These tend to be the more expensive ones and can cost up to $1,000 US. However, the average price tends to stay around $50, again, which is not that much money for what you can actually make out of it. And so this little timeline here on the bottom left-hand side shows you from January 2016 all the way to up to today. with some of the discussions around bank injection on the dark web. And the most important thing to take from this is how you can see the events, so the orange dots, how the density of them is increasing leading up to today, meaning that it is something that's being discussed more and will only likely increase. On this slide are sniffers. So credit card sniffers, similar to banking inject, sniffers are used to inject malicious code into a website's payment system to steal payment card information. Previously, to steal this type of information, adversaries either use skimmers on physical ATM machines or point-of-sale malware, but now we're seeing sniffers being the preferred, just given the ease of use. And these types of injections can happen in multiple ways. So as discussed previously, cross-site scripting is one way of doing it. Form jacking is another way of doing it, and third-party code is another way as well. So far, we've seen actually very little risk associated with conducting attacks using sniffers, and it's often been an incredibly high reward off of it. So even with a couple of Magecart arrests that happened only a few months ago, these have continued to increase, and especially now with the migration of customers online, and with COVID-19, meaning that people are staying at home more often, it's only likely that these attacks will continue to increase. So with the rise of the sniffers, what we're seeing, it's not only Magecart related actors who are conducting these attacks. Given the profitability of them, we're seeing more people starting to develop these. And so I want to highlight a couple of sniffers that we have seen being used and the personas behind them. So there's one user on multiple underground forums called Sochi. He created an inter-sniffer, which is the one in the bottom right-hand corner. Sochi is active on forums such as Exploit Forum and Club to Card. The inter-sniffer can cost up to $990 US, and it comes with the payload, obviously, along with user manual and 24/7 customer support if you're having any issues trying to inject your sniffer onto a website. Similarly, Bilar, also very active on underground forums, created the sniffer Mr. Sniffer, which is the one in the top right-hand corner here. This one can actually go for as much as $3,000 US. Also comes with 24/7 support, and through it, you also get a unique way of receiving, implementing, and executing the malware code. And finally, Poser is another one that we've seen. They developed the universal sniffer, which is the one here in the left corner. This one works quite uniquely as well. It can actually organize stolen data into a single format and delete any repeated payment card information that we're seeing sort of coming through in the injections, or as well. So the thing to highlight here is just that the competition for the different type of sniffers out there, similar to the competition for any type of technology or clothing, requires the developers to actually ensure that they are providing their consumers with the best possible experience when using these. So that's why we're seeing things like 24/7 support, and each sniffer trying to make itself stand out through the different types of functionalities that come with it. And the way that we actually see the data that has been compromised through these sniffers being monetized is that the credit card information and payment card information being that was stolen, we've seen appearing on forums such as Trump Stumps and similar looking ones. And we've also seen the threat actors who compromise this data trying to recruit mules or people to help them receive and reship merchandise purchased with stolen credit card data to try to, in a way, launder the data that was stolen or the money to make it legit. However, when talking about injecting malicious code into websites to steal credit card data or payment data, you have to inevitably talk about Magecart as a group. Magecart is a name that's given to a group of different threat actors that are known to target e-commerce websites. The name originally came from the group targeting the software Magento, and it was actually initially observed in 2015 as a single group by the researchers at RiskIQ. Today, however, Magecart has developed into a kind of umbrella term for 12 subgroups who conduct similar attacks. Not all of these different subgroups actually develop the Sniffers. As I mentioned on the previous slides, there are specialized people who actually develop them, maintain them, upgrade them. So this doesn't always just come down to Magecart, the group itself. We then also have within the groups themselves that they actually conduct their TTPs very differently. So we have some that cast a wide net. We try to target as many vendors as possible. Another group that tries to conceal their skimmers and make it very difficult to find. Others target third-party vendors to try to get through their supply chain through that. And then we have some that limit their victims to only very high-value organizations and try to inject the codes directly onto that website. And through this, we have noticed that there has been a change in the TTPs that Magecart related groups are using. What this actually indicates is that the groups themselves are very conscious of the improvements that are being made by web application security teams and know that they have to change the tactics to be able to continue conducting these attacks that they are. And so similar to any other sort of mafia or drug gangs, when sort of law enforcement stops them in one direction, they're going to change the tactics to continue supplying their consumers another way. So similarly, Magecart and other types of threat actors, when one route is stopped, they'll find another way to do it. And this is what we continue to see as the TTPs have evolved. Going into some of the recent activity that we've been seeing from Magecart related groups. So recently, there was a massive attack on dubbed Card Bleed. So this was only the past few weeks. It was the largest documented campaign to date that we have seen, with over 2,000 websites hit and likely over tens of thousands of customer data stolen. This was a very Magento style attack. Injected code, intercepted payment information. However, one thing that stands out is that all infected online stores were running Magento 1 software. So Magento 1 had its end of life in June 2019. And what we were actually able to see in recorded future through our harvesting and scraping of underground forums is here on the right-hand side, which says translated from Russian. You can see that the user 0 Day on Exploit forum is selling a 0 Day for Magento 1 for $5,000 US. And so we're not directly linking this 0 Day to the actual attacks themselves, but what we're able to see is that it could potentially be linked, and through being able to have an insight into dark web forums and potential 0 Days or POC exploits targeting technologies that you are using, it could lead to potential mitigating steps taken before an actual attack has happened. And so on this as well, obviously keeping your software up to date is crucial. Don't use software that has an end of life more than 1 year ago. However, unfortunately, this doesn't seem to get through to everyone, as there are still over 90,000 stores operating Magento 1 today who are very vulnerable to attacks like this. And the second attack I want to highlight that also happened quite recently is a homoglyph attack that was conducted by Magecart attackers. So what they did was they actually targeted several websites using typo-squatted domain names. So as you can see here at the top of the domains, the legit website is called Cigar Page, whereas the homoglyph domain is called Cigar Page with a Q instead of a G. So very innocuous differences that as a user can be very easy to miss, and you can easily click on the incorrect site or the illegitimate site. And what Magecart would do is they would inject the innocuous code into the legit website, which they had hacked through some form of cross-site scripting or form jacking. And this legit website would then load a file from the fake website, which had copied the website's directory structure to make it seem as legitimate as possible. The fake website was then able to actually load a much larger JavaScript, which was loaded onto the legit website and ran the sniffer into sniffer that we saw or that we discussed previously. One thing as well that using technologies like Recorded Future, you can see here in the bottom right-hand corner, we were able to pick up that the domain Cigar Page was used and typo-squatted or was registered for the potential weaponized attack in early August that hopefully would allow defenders to take action for potentially taking down a domain or being wary of these types of domains targeting your company. And so to finish off, however, there are definitely ways to try to protect yourself through this. And one way to do it is through using threat intelligence and insights like the ones that I've shown today. So obviously with things like being able to monitor dark web forums, being able to pick up when typo-squatted domains are being registered, things like that will always help. However, what threat intelligence really allows you to do is to detect threats faster and take action on them with more confidence than you would previously. So really enhancing incident response teams with the relevant threat data for them to act upon. Why this is important is because we're seeing metrics such as mean time to detect and mean time to respond decrease significantly, which can be really important because some attacks and some Magecart attacks we're seeing go undetected for months because these can be very difficult to actually notice if someone has injected malicious code into the website. Other things as well that we mentioned with the dark web forums, an ability to monitor for threats to your tech stack and other vulnerabilities to actually be alerted immediately when we're seeing dark web forums discussing the sale of 0 days or exploits for technologies that you're running and crucial to your business, allowing you to patch and triage if needed in that way. And then finally, with the example on the homoglyph attack, by being able to monitor for domain registrations, using things like looking for typo-squatted domains or domains that are registered using your brands, this will allow you to more proactively defend against phishing attacks, and again, make sure that any sort of potential brand reputation is mitigated through proactive takedowns of these domains themselves. So that was it for me. I unfortunately don't have a finished slide. So this is how I'm going to have to end. But yeah, thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Julius, for this awesome presentation. We do have a couple of questions. So the first one will be, what were the most common attack vectors used by threat actors? What did you see about, maybe 0 days, phishings, or what were the trend?
Yeah, great question. And so I think as defenders or people trying to sort of work and defend companies, we often try to think that make it seem like attackers are going to do it a lot harder than they have to. What we're seeing continuously is that with the billions of credentials that are available on the dark web and the ease at which they can validate these, as I discussed, it doesn't require anymore for someone to develop a really or find a 0-day or exploit some vulnerability through an exploit kit. The most common attack vectors that we're seeing today are definitely stolen credentials or something as simple as phishing attacks with either malicious files and documents or just redirecting them to websites that will then load payloads. So it's often that they realize the ease at which people will click things, and especially now when people are just sat at home all the time, and someone with a malicious link in an email is maybe more, it's easier for them to click on something than it probably would have in the offices previously. So really, it's very easy to be an attacker, and they are using this now with the access of credentials that we're seeing available on the dark web.
That's great. So the next question is about credential leaks. You've seen that the threat actors used more like brute forcers or just credential dumps from into pastebin from some sniffers? What was the trend that you've seen?
So I wouldn't actually be able to speak too much on the trends between the two, unfortunately. It is, yeah, but I will just highlight the brute forcers, as now that you mentioned it. I think I didn't touch on that specifically. So the difference between checkers and brute forcers, where checkers check the validity of a email and a password combination. A brute forcer, what they do is they can take an email and then run that email against common passwords to see if they match on other websites. So I wouldn't be able to actually speak to the trend of how those compare against each other, unfortunately, but that's at least how they differentiate, which wasn't your question anyway.
Yeah. But another question that I have, it's about the banking injections, because the question was more about one sec to read it again. Yeah, more like to rephrase a little bit the question. In terms of banking injections, what were the modus operandi? And the TTPs used, like certificate dumping, spoofing, maybe also TLS hijacking, and also one interesting vector that was mentioned here that I didn't consider till this moment, about driver injections that could be used as a sniffer.
Yeah, so in terms of how the injections actually happen, again, unfortunately, I don't know too much on that, but I did mention in the presentation that a lot of these banking injects are being delivered through, again, simple phishing attacks, targeting users who will be completely unsuspected in their ways when they do sort of insert the payment information. And then also exploit kits, which again can be purchased readily available on the dark web. So those are the sort of ways that they can be delivered. The way that the actual injection occurs is something that I am less aware of off the top of my head.
And another question that we have, it's regarding the benefits or the layer, how cyber threat intelligence fits into the product development, how cyber threat intel will protect the product development side. Is it a good layer that fits into the product development, and what the team needs to put in place to have a better product development, and also to have the intelligence that someone will mention something from the product development perspective.
So how do you mean by product development perspective, as in just?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about how can we develop better products, and how can Cybersecurity Intel help us about better developing the products.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think it's just what cyber threat intelligence allows you to do. It's just to get that additional bit of context and insights into how things are being discussed, what's available out there. Yeah, so how things are being discussed today, and it gives you the insight into not only the sort of vulnerable technologies that you might be using or that would be implied in this product, but also to be able to monitor for how threat actors are discussing this and the different types of ways that you would develop the product itself, and to ensure that you're equipped with enough insights to be able to so confidently develop these products in ways that wouldn't expose you through, in ways that we've seen being discussed on the dark web today.
Yeah, another question that we have, it's about TLS hooking in Windows for decryption, and maybe you can give us a couple of hints, if you can give a couple of hints about TLS communication with the DOM server for malware. What you've seen from your position, if of course you can say that.
Yeah, no, I wish I could. Unfortunately, when it comes to the sort of configurations of malware, I would have to refer to my colleagues who I'd be happy to put you in contact with. I know that they would love to speak to these things and would probably be able to share insights that I am not able to do. Unfortunately, when it comes to sort of TLS hooking on these things, apologies for that. But yeah, I would have to leave that one to my colleagues who are much better equipped at answering those questions.
Yeah, no worries. So thanks again for your awesome presentation. So it was really insightful. And thanks a lot, all of you, for the presentation. Thanks, Ioana. Thanks, Daniel, for your talks. And hopefully next time we'll see either in person, and we'll stream it online. So maybe we can have it both physically and virtually, because it's cool that we can have it online, but it will be even more fun, and we'll have lots of benefits if we can take it also maybe into the winter session. We can have it physically and virtually also. So thanks a lot for all participants, and hope you had a great time and you've enjoyed the session and this event. So thank you all, and yeah, see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.